An article published by Edweek in April 2022 reported that of U.S. teachers polled in a recent survey of the American teacher, only 12% of the nearly 1,500 responses received reported that they felt, quote, very satisfied with their jobs. 12% of teachers. 12%. Let that sink in for a minute. Hey guys, my name is Nikki and welcome to My Adventurous Life. This is an eclectic channel that details my journey from being a frustrated public school teacher in America to living a life of adventure, pursuing meaningful work, and experiencing all that the world has to offer. In this video, we're going to discuss the findings of this survey of the American teacher, and you're going to get my pitch for why you should quit your public school teaching career and move across the world just as I did. As always, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and check out my website, nikkiforzane.com, to learn how you can transform your unfulfillment into a life of adventure as well. Teachers are unhappy. I don't think that's a huge secret. I know that I was. While many of you who work 50-hour-a-week jobs in fields that have life or death consequences for mistakes may scoff at that, I stand by my original statement. In fact, if you do work in one of those fields, I salute you. This video is not about comparing the relative difficulties of jobs in fields like medicine, construction, the military, or education. Instead, it's about pointing out the inefficiencies and the frustrations that most teachers in America experience. If you're an American teacher and you're looking for a new life, a way to escape the stuckness, the sameness, the monotony, and the unfulfillment of your day-to-day, then I promise you, stick around in this video. I have a solution for you. I've done it, and I've proved the success of this method. Just take this article as Exhibit A. Teachers are dissatisfied, and I think I know why. The following reasons are frustrations that the average teacher faces. If you're a teacher, you can attest to the things that I'm about to say. See if these ring a bell. Number one, an increasing workload. The workload on the average classroom teacher has increased exponentially over the past 20 years. Not only do we have increasing population size, but we also have an increase in an influx of students with higher need levels than your average student in the past. For example, many general education teachers are faced with dealing with ELL students coming from different countries at an older age. They may not have the English skills to succeed in a science, social studies, or mathematics classroom without a ton of extra work on the teacher's behalf. We also have an increasing number of students with social and emotional learning needs, and schools are not doing enough to address this. Another thing that's increasing the workload of teachers is the constant bureaucratic red tape that's being put onto the field of education by lawmakers. In fact, the amount of paperwork that I was responsible for as an ELL teacher in the United States was immense. I could not believe how much time was expected of me to file folders of student records in multiple languages, detailing all of the learning data for hundreds of kids throughout the school, some of whom I did not even have in the classroom. And not only that, but I was the only qualified teacher in the building that knew anything about this paperwork. That's on top of planning, grading papers, actually teaching the class, and participating in extracurricular activities that all teachers are expected to participate in. And that's not to say I don't want to participate in these types of extracurriculars, but when your workload is exacerbated by the amount of paperwork that you have to file before and after school, you end up cutting back on lots of things that previous generations of teachers would have considered important for building community and helping students feel as if they're a part of something bigger. This makes the overall education experience of the American public school student much weaker. Unfortunately, red tape keeps piling up as lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit comes through the court systems, and law after law after law gets passed by local governing bodies and state and federal governing bodies as well. I'm not saying there's not a reason for these laws. I'm not saying that all laws are bad, but the more red tape you get, the less human the education experience becomes. And I don't think anybody wants a future where every student has to fill out a waiver to participate in each and every classroom activity. Number two, I've already mentioned, and it's the increasing social and emotional need of the average student. In the United States, over the past 3 to 4 years especially, the social and emotional needs of students has increased dramatically. Even from the time that I began teaching in the first COVID year, 2019-2020, I observed a different social and emotional pattern in your average student than I've recognized over the last couple of years post-COVID. I believe that COVID has a lot to do with the lack in developmental psychology that seems to span across the spectrum of students of this generation. But I also think that the isolation that COVID-19 brought us is not the only reason that a lot of these students are struggling. So many students are coming to the classroom with social and emotional needs that would have been considered uncommon just 10 years ago. And I believe that the symptoms that we're experiencing from some of these children, the symptoms that they're exhibiting, the behaviors they're exhibiting, are a result of poor parenting. As much as I hate to say that as someone without parental experience myself, I've worked in situations with nonprofit organizations or churches where parentless or one-parent homes were more common. And I've seen the developmental issues that orphans and children who don't know one or both parents exhibit. And a lot of students in the United States, whether they have two parents in the home or not, are starting to exhibit these same types of behaviors in the classroom. There's a general inability to trust in adult figures, and maybe teachers have lost that respect themselves, but that doesn't make it any less of an issue. We have a real epidemic of lack of trust in the school system, from students to teachers, teachers to administration, parents to teachers, and parents to administration. It spans the whole gambit. But teachers are tired of being parents to parentless children in the classroom. Many teachers have their own children to parent back home. And when you're in the classroom, you want to be focusing on learning, on education. Instead, what happens is a lot of teachers end up focusing on social and behavioral issues, which is not unimportant. It's needed, obviously, but it's not exactly what these people signed up to do for a living, and it's not very easy, especially when you consider the red tape that we mentioned in the last section, which prohibits teachers from disciplining children in ways they might have been disciplined in the past. It's really a no-win situation where teachers have no authority really to enforce any behavioral consequences on their students, while the students continue to exhibit more and more difficult and challenging behaviors to deal with in the classroom. It's not fun. Number three is consistently low pay and prestige in the culture. Now, we've all heard the old adage, those who can't do, teach. And I think that that idea is still very pervasive in our culture. Teachers are often saluted by the community. We're thanked for our efforts. We get a discount at some businesses. But the large majority of people have very low respect for the teaching profession. One, they believe that teachers don't really work that much. They get summers off, they get Christmas break, they get spring break, they get fall break. I think the general consensus on this is, why do teachers complain? They only work 2/3 of the year and they get paid a full-time salary. However, a lot of people don't understand the hours and hours that teachers pour into their classrooms outside of regular school hours. Not only that, but if you coach a sport or you participate in a club, you're probably going to be on the hook for at least a couple of hours a day throughout your summers, spring break, fall break, etc. In addition to that, we all know that teachers don't make a lot of money. Again, opponents of increasing teacher pay would argue that teachers only work 2/3 of the year, and that is true. However, it is a very common profession, and the low pay that teachers receive makes it very difficult to support a family. And I can absolutely see why a lot of teachers are leaving the profession based mainly on pay and prestige. The starting annual salary in the state of Alabama for a new teacher in a public school is $38,477 per year. However, the poverty line is $26,496, which means a teacher can support a family and not be below the poverty line. However, it's only $12,000 above that line, which is not a whole lot. It's really not a career. It's an entry-level position, and usually the bonuses or the increase in pay year by year that teachers receive doesn't even match inflation, which tends to be about 3% per year. Of course, in recent years, it's been much higher. Teachers are fed up for these reasons and so many more. So here's the punchline. What should you, a frustrated teacher, do about it? Here's my advice. Quit. Yikes. That's a pretty scary proposition. I know, and I will qualify this concept just a little bit. I felt stuck in my job for all of these reasons, and much more. All of the things that we mentioned earlier plagued me for my entire tenure as a public school teacher, which lasted about 4 years. The financial element, as I've already mentioned, was particularly difficult because it forced my wife to work a job that she really hated. And I was stuck dealing with the consequences of my decision to go into the teaching profession by having to keep an extremely tight budget and deal with the stresses that my wife had to bring home from work and that I brought home from work. But the reason I quit my public school teaching job was not because of these tensions at all. It was actually because I found a better opportunity, and I want to share that with you now. See, I had traveled abroad in my college years, and I really enjoyed the experience of going overseas, experiencing a new culture, meeting new friends, trying new foods, and globetrotting. So I decided to take my job search abroad. I had obtained a master's degree in education, and I felt that I was kind of beholden to remain in that field, at least for a while longer. And I really wanted a redeeming experience in the classroom, because I felt that teaching was inherently meaningful and that I could do a lot of good in the world if I could find a place where I really fit in the classroom as a teacher. So that's what I did. I reached out to schools all across the world. I interviewed with schools in Guatemala, in Egypt, in Turkey, and in Thailand, where I ended up. My entire message on this channel and on my website, nikkiforzane.com, is to encourage people to forget about all of the social stigmas and perceived obstacles that they have with changing their career, thinking outside the box, and getting adventurous with their life. By living and teaching abroad, I've become geographically free to explore the world. I've met people from various cultures and systems of belief from which I've learned tons. And I now have the ability to satisfy a lot of my wanderlust and curiosity, that same curiosity that made me feel so stuck in my hometown. Here I've become free to explore my personal mission statement in life, to change the way that I think about things, and to set myself on a course to live the life that I actually want to live and be able to provide for myself and my family. The first reason you should explore teaching abroad is so that you can live a life of adventure. The second reason you should experience teaching abroad is because of better relative pay. That's relative to the cost of living in the country that you're moving to. In Switzerland, the average salary for a teacher is around 95,600 Swiss francs, which comes out to around 104,000 US dollars per year. Now, granted, it is more expensive to live in Switzerland than in most parts of the United States, but I promise you that high pay more than makes up for the difference. Let that sink in for a minute. 104,000 US dollars a year to be a classroom teacher. And the best part, friends, is that Switzerland is short on English-speaking teachers. Where I live in Thailand, I only make around $1,600 a month teaching at an international school. But this figure is more than enough to support myself and my wife completely on that salary alone, because the cost of living in Thailand is incredibly low. In fact, $1,600 a month in some parts of Thailand is enough to save quite a bit each month, especially if you're frugal with the way you spend your time and money. The fact of the matter is, teachers around the world are often paid much better relative to the cost of living in that country than they are in the United States. And just so you know, a large number of schools around the world are looking to hire more than just ESL teachers. If you're a native English speaker and you have a certification to teach mathematics, social studies, sciences, even art or PE, then you can find a job teaching at an international school in another country, and you can probably get paid more relative to the cost of living than you are in the US. The next reason that you should quit your teaching job in America and pursue education abroad is that there is a much higher level of respect for the teaching profession in many countries around the world. In America, traditions are made to be broken, and most things are questioned or disrespected in one way or another. The teaching profession is no different. My experience in Thailand has completely reversed this trend. In my new country, a day is set aside at the beginning of the year to honor teachers. It's called Y Crew Day, and children bring flowers and kneel at their teachers' feet, bowing and offering them the flowers as a gift, showing them the respect that their culture has for educators. While the bowing is a bit much, I was blown away by this experience, and it just feels good to work in a profession that people actually respect. The fourth reason that you should pursue teaching abroad is that in many countries there are students with a much higher level of intrinsic motivation and dedication to the process of learning than you see in America. Most students and families in America do not appreciate the education process at all. We take it for granted. But in places like Southeast Asia, education is king, and students and parents both have a great deal of respect for the process of learning. This means you're going to get better behavior in the classroom, higher quality work, and you won't have to feel like a dancing monkey when you're in front of your class. I have not had one behavioral write-up this entire year in my classes. Compare that to the previous year where I had the principal's office on speed dial, and you'll see why I enjoyed teaching in Thailand much more. To say that teaching in Thailand is more enjoyable than the US is a ridiculous understatement. It's like the difference between bench pressing a Ford Bronco and bench pressing a Daisy. That's no exaggeration. Don't get me wrong, I loved my students in America. They were full of charisma and charm, and we had lots of fun together. But getting them to do what was in their own best interest was like offering involuntary root canals every single day of the week. Teaching abroad has offered me a redemptive education experience, and it can do the same for you. Even if you don't feel like teaching is your long-term goal, trying international education for a year or two is a great way to get a new perspective on life and to actually enjoy what you do somewhat each day. The fifth reason you should consider teaching abroad and quitting your teaching job in America is that there is no more red tape. Now, I've seen firsthand how this can sometimes backfire. Laws are obviously on the books for a reason. That being said, the amount of paperwork that I'm required to do in this new job is minuscule compared to the mountains and mountains of paperwork and folders that I had to prepare each year at my last job. The amount of oversight right now in the US public education system is suffocating, and getting away from that has been a huge sigh of relief for me and countless others like me. Most places around the world do not have prohibitively litigated school systems like the US does. So try teaching in another country and see if your paperwork load lightens exponentially. All of these reasons make a really compelling case for why you should quit your teaching job in America and move abroad, at least for a short time. If you're frustrated with your circumstances as a US public educator, as I was, I highly recommend this option. Now, that being said, I don't think we should all abandon ship. Obviously, there are people in the US public education system who are doing a great job and need to stay. But if you're feeling ineffectual, if you hate waking up every morning and putting on your shoes and going to work, if you feel a sense of dread in your gut every time that bell rings, you might want to take a step back. You're not helping anybody or being any kind of martyr by sitting in a classroom that you hate being in, teaching students that you are so frustrated with you can't even see their humanity anymore, and working within a system that bugs you to no end. You really need to take a step out. Education is one of those careers that you can't just put your nose to the grinder and trudge through. You really end up doing harm to students if you do that. You need to make sure your mental health is okay. And one of the ways that you can do that is to step out of the current bubble that you're in, reach outside the box for something new and interesting, and pursue a career in international education. I promise you, it can be the best learning experience you've ever had in your professional life. It has been for me, and I'm obviously here recommending it to you. If you want to learn more about pursuing international education, then check out my website, nikkiforzane.com, where I'll be releasing a book I've written on this topic in the coming months. Keep an eye out for that, subscribe to this channel and like the video, and please, please, please think and live adventurously. That's all, friends. Thank you.